Yeah.
What do you do when you've already done that and you've provided the support and you've done the surveys, you've done the petitions, and they say that we can't do it because there are too many logistical problems, too many liabilities, specifically like we'll use Good Samaritan policy, and they essentially keep talking about it, but nothing changes.
Sure.
Who do you go to that's above them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, so the example that I used about, and the question, if you didn't hear it, is basically what if the administration stalls on you, and you do all the studies, you do all the research, you build, broad support like they did, like you guys have at University of Maryland, and the administration still just says, tough luck, we're not going to do this. In the example that I used about Rob Simmons, what we realized is that we could use voter anger as leverage against him, right? Because he's an elected official facing a tight re-election, so that was the leverage that we could use against him. Unfortunately, administrators are not elected officials, right? So you don't have the same kind of leverage that you can exercise on them, but like every other person, they have weak points and they have things that you can exploit. Now, what do administrators essentially care about?
Money.
Yeah, okay. What was that?
Money.
Money, okay. I mean, most college administrators don't make too much money.
Well, not their
university.
salary so much, but money for their school, the budget, their
Right.
resources for their school.
Right, exactly. So budget, resources at the school, keeping things going. Where do they get a lot of that money? Alumni, right, and tuition. Tuition, alumni, two major sources. And what else do they care about? So parents, because most parents actually pay the tuition, right? Or they co-sign on the loans or that kind of thing. So, yeah. Keeping the peace, interesting. Sure, yeah, so they want to avoid, the kind of student protests that we had back in the 1960s where students are taking over administration buildings and, burning the university flags, and sure. Anything else? I'll name one of the major things that's often overlooked, and then I'll call on Justin. One of the major things that's often overlooked is legacy, right? When you're, an administrator at a university, a public university for 20 years, 30 years, and then you retire, you care about a lot about your legacy, right? And what kind of image you had if you brought the ranking of the university from, in U.S. News and World Report from 25 to 20 or something. So legacy is really important as well. So I bring up all these because at my university, when we were facing this exact same thing, we ran an awesome campaign. We're sitting down with administrators and they just kept stalling on us. What we did to bring them back to the table is we organized a huge fucking protest of the administration building. We got everybody out there. I mean, there were like hundreds of students out there chanting. We got every newspaper and TV news station out there. USA Today covered it. Christian Science Monitor, an international newspaper, covered it. And at that point, their reputation and their legacy started to crumble, right? And at that point, they realized, oh, whoa, this is too much. We're on the front page of the Providence Journal right now with our students up in arms about this. So that brought them back to the table. We were able to renegotiate things. They ultimately ended up changing the policy, which was a random dorm search policy. So now their policy is to knock first and gain approval first from students before they search the dorms. So that might not work in your case, but sometimes it does take drastic measures to kind of get things going again. Yeah.
This didn't work for us, but it might work for other people. One of the things that we did in terms of employing their concern about the image is we kept reminding them about their peer institutions. That definitely had an effect, and you can kind of see them kind of go, uh-oh. But then I mean, like, it still didn't work for us, but it might help other people.
Sure. Yeah, if anyone doesn't know, most universities have a list of peer institutions. So these are colleges that are very similar in a lot of ways in terms of, you know, student body, the kind of environment that the campus is, what sorts of programs are offered at the university. So a lot of universities look to their peer institutions and also their aspirational institutions, so institutions that they ultimately want to be or become for guidance on these. So let's say you're working on a Good Samaritan campaign and you look at their list of aspirational institutions and 5 out of 6 have Good Samaritan policies, and you look at their list of peer institutions and, you know, maybe 2 out of 3 have them. That's strong leverage that you can go into the meeting with. Anybody else? Anybody else? Yeah.
Well, do you think in helping, because I talked to my parent personally and she was in support of the same views that I was, do you think that having maybe a petition or something that says, hey, we are the parents of such and such and support this policy would actually help since they are the abortion parents?
Yeah, well, to clarify, I don't want to come across as like being anti-petition or anti-protest or anything like that. I mean, petitions can be incredibly effective. Mostly building a list of active supporters. If you're ever petitioning, don't forget email address or phone number, because ultimately what petitions do is build a big list of people who support your cause, and they can turn out to events and rallies and can send letters to decision makers and that kind of thing. But as for petitioning parents or coming up with a list of parents or alumni who support this, that's going to be really important too. I definitely think that's a good strategy. More, you have Maryland questions?
Sorry, it just keeps going off of the same
Cool.
A lot of times, like, we're refused access to the names and, you know, basically any access to the donors and alumni and parents. Do you have any advice for how to do that specifically, or would you propose maybe giving kids a letter to bring to their parents? I mean, that didn't even work in elementary school. I can't really see that working now, but...
yeah, I mean, you may not have access to a comprehensive list of all the alumni and parents. If you go to school there and you petition the student body and you have 1,000 people on your email list now who support this policy change, those are people that you can reach out to, and then, you know, if you reach out to 1,000 of them and maybe half of them actually follow through and get through to their parents, and then maybe 10% of them actually, you know, convince their parents to take a stand on that. It's 50 people, you know, 50 parents, and if parents don't, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of pressure, and you may not think it's big proportionally, right? 50 parents out of a class of many thousands, but proportions don't really matter too much when enacting policy change, because ultimately when you have 50 pissed off parents in an administration building, it looks like a lot more, right? So yeah, I mean, same thing when we do our national lobby days. We have 500 students there. There are millions of people throughout the country, but 500 students, the presence of 500 students on Capitol Hill really does matter.